Last winter, severe ice storms cut power, leaving thousands to scramble for candles and heat. Yet, as a new book by author Andy Crouch observes, power is about so much more than keeping the lights on. So what exactly is power? And is it possible to have more of it than you think? In this special edition of Context, Lorna goes on location to speak with Andy Crouch to decode the place of power in daily life. Meanwhile, our Sheldon Neal also takes to the field. He'll discover the surprising ways people put their power to work. This is Context, a look at life beyond the headlines.
Welcome to Context. I'm Lorna Dueck. When we were offered an opportunity to catch up with author and journalist Andy Crouch, Context took to the road. I spoke with him at Redeemer University College in Hamilton, Ontario, during a stop on his book tour for Playing God, Redeeming the Gift of Power. You begin with a challenge, and that is if we view power suspiciously, and that's our default mode, is that someone's got power, I'm suspicious. What's wrong with that default mode?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons we are suspicious of power and people with power, because probably everyone in some way has been harmed by someone who wielded power inappropriately. But I think if that is the only way we approach power, we miss what power was actually meant for, which is a gift that is meant to actually lead to flourishing rather than diminishing.
Okay, let's talk first about the fear we have around power. Give me some examples of how we are fear-motivated about power.
When I tell people I'm writing a book about power, or told them during the writing of it, more often than anything else, people would say, well, you know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Everyone's heard that. And I think it reflects something very true, which is actually true of every gift that we receive as human beings. Has a kind of shadow side or a way to be corrupted and distorted. And actually, I would say power is in some ways the most fundamental and the deepest gift we're given as creatures, as human beings. And consequently, it can be most deeply distorted as a gift. Okay,
so your premise begins then is understand you have power, no matter where you are in the pecking order of life.
Yes, rather than thinking, oh, power is something that other people have, which we tend to do. All of us can think of someone more powerful than ourselves. No matter where we are in the order, there's someone higher up on the order. But all of us, the very nature of what it is to be alive is to have some measure of ability to make a difference in your surroundings. Every creature that's alive transforms its surroundings in some way. And that would be the most basic kind of power. Now, none of us can change everything about our surroundings, or even everything that we'd want to change. But all of us have some capacity to make a difference in the relationships we're in the part of the world that we dwell in and take care of. And the problem is, so often we're looking out at the things we can't change and can't affect, that we miss the ways that we actually have sometimes a great deal of power within a more limited space, but real power to make change.
Okay, single mother, trying to raise 2 kids, working in dead-end jobs that can't give her full-time hours. Where's her power?
Yeah, so if you're in that situation, you obviously spend a lot of your day aware of how constrained you are. But from your children's point of view, you have power in their lives to shape what they imagine reality is, to answer the most basic question any human being has, which is there someone who loves me? And that mother has amazing power in the lives of her children. And even if she has to spend a lot of time away from them to work and make ends meet, you know what it is to be a child, that you are oriented towards your parent in a quite remarkable way. And that means that even someone who is constrained in all sorts of ways in the world, there are, in her case, these young people who absolutely need power to be used well by their mother in that case.
You actually think there's powerful things we can do that increase our ability to keep that power healthy with each other. Give me an example of that.
I mean, for our family, there's a couple different things we've done, but something we just committed to was to actually cook together. And not just for us to cook for our kids, but for us to actually teach our children to cook. So that's an example of multiplying power. 10 years ago, when our children were very small, we couldn't trust them with the knives. We had all the power to cook, and they had no power to cook. But after 10 years of gradually inviting them into this family process of preparing meals, now sometimes we'll turn it entirely over to our 13-year-old, and she'll make the meal. And now she has power that she didn't have before, but it contributes to the flourishing of the whole family. And I think that's what power is meant to be. It's meant to be something that multiplies, and as it multiplies, actually everyone it touches comes more alive and has a richer, fuller experience of life.
Coming up, Sheldon Neal heads out looking for the healing effect of power used well. But first, I ask Andy Crouch, author of Playing God, Redeeming the Gift of Power, about the use and abuse of power at work. Stay with us. How is power used in your workplace? What can be done differently? That's just some of the ground I covered with author Andy Crouch in Hamilton, Ontario. This deliberate pursuit of using power like this, it comes from your view that we are all image bearers. We bear the image of God. Explain that to me.
So this is one of the core Christian convictions about human beings. That while we are creatures, that is, we are in one sense just like all the other creatures around us, and we are made of the same stuff as everything around us and all the living things around us, that at the same time, in some unique way, we are capable of reflecting into the world the nature of the world's creator. So we ourselves didn't make the world. We couldn't have made the world. And yet we're able to reflect into the world the image of the one who did make it. There is some sense in which, in what we do and the way we relate to one another and the things we're able to do with creation, we're able to model what God himself would do, you might say, if God were present in the flesh.
So let's move this discussion then to our power that we have for our jobs, for our world of employment. There's a robust debate going on about a living wage, dropping the idea of minimum wage, making it living wage. What do we do about the power that the job has over our personal lives?
Often, in most situations, employers have more power than employees. Sometimes employees can have a lot of power if labor is scarce or so forth, but usually those who can provide jobs have a lot of power. And the temptation of anyone in any position of power is to start to play God in the worst sense of the word. And what that always leads to is trying to expand my ability and authority at the expense of your ability and authority. Whether that's expanding my wealth at the expense of your also becoming enriched if we create wealth together, or expanding my sense of importance by making you seem very unimportant. So, wages are a very important part of this, but in some ways it's a more comprehensive thing we're called to ask, as an employer, what kind of environment am I creating for the flourishing of the people who work in this place of employment?
And how about for the employee? Can they ask anything?
I think the best news for employees is you are made in the image of God. And that means when you go to work, whatever your position is, however menial it may seem or simple it may be, you bear just as much dignity as anyone else in that system. I go into some restaurants where I can just tell the kitchen is full of people who are really glad to be working together and are doing good work together. And you can go to other restaurants that serve the same kind of food and see a place where you sense there's just antagonism, there's boredom, there's frustration. Well, a lot of that depends on actually the people working the line. Not all depends on the management. So all of us have some ability to shape whether our environments are creating flourishing or not.
Our conversation with author Andy Crouch continues, but first, back to the field where Sheldon Neal is looking at how employers use power well.
Thank you so much, Lorna. I am here at Mountain Equipment Co-op here, and I'm not alone. I'm here with my friend Cam Dempster. what is the philosophy? I mean, I see a lot of people when we walked in this morning, people are having fun, a lot of the employers and so forth. What's the philosophy of work here?
Okay, well, our main goal is to get Canadians to live active outdoor lifestyles. So that's really something we try to promote with our staff in the way we live our lives and the products that we sell.
Tell me about the massive amount of things you sell here.
I really like to call this store a toy store for adults. Okay. So as you mentioned, we've got everything from climbing to backcountry skiing to athletic apparel, footwear. We have one of the largest footwear selections in the city. If you're looking for winter boots, running shoes, you name it, we've got it. Winter clothing, jackets, rainwear, you name it, camping, stoves. We've pretty much got it all. I could go on and on. Cycling is a huge new department.
So someone could actually live here, because I know you got food here, you got tents, you got sleeping bags, you can call this place home. I'm kind of switching gears here about power in the workplace. And one of the good things about making that top 100 is obviously employees want to be here. Yep. Looking at that dynamic of power, that relationship, how is it different here at Mountain Equipment Co-op?
Well, making the top 100 is really, really important to us. As an organization, we want to be seen as an attractive place for people to work. So we want to make this a great environment for people to come in and work, and we want great people to work here. So creating that fun, outgoing atmosphere is really important to us.
And how do you guys do that? Because I know so many, I know of friends, you know, they wake up in the morning, whether it's Monday or Friday, and they're like, oh, I got to go back to that place. Is it a philosophy of forgiveness, a family philosophy, or how does it make it, how do you make it work?
One of the big pluses is it's really a group of like-minded people. So the people who work here are genuinely excited about getting outside and getting active. So you'll have groups going out on meetup runs. We've got a group coming back today actually from a field course. They're out winter camping for 3 days.
Your employees are doing that?
Staff are out camping right now. Last week there was an ice climbing field course. So they actually traveled to Tremblant and spent 3 days ice climbing. So there's a really great environment. It's a great way to meet people who like doing the same activities you do.
One thing that I was talking to Cam earlier about is that he said, you know, a lot of what the employees you see here, you guys are actively involved in activities outside of these four walls. Mm-hmm. Is that what makes the kind of employer-employee relationship a little bit different? Like the power is not, you must go to work and all this kind of stuff. There's more of a relationship culture built.
Very much so, yeah. It's sort of a family dynamic here. So the senior staff here are very supportive of us, and they encourage us to go on trips and go on field courses, all of this sort of thing that are supported by MEC as well. We have a whole employee development program where it has a bunch of gear from the store that we can sign out at any time and use if we want to. Another benefit of working here, you get access to a couple climbing gyms in the city for free. There's passes there, so you get access to 3 gyms. There's yoga passes.
Now don't say too many free things, or I'm sure this place is going to get a whole heap of resumes going to hit. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being a part of it.
Worries.
Just me alone out here in the cold. I just escaped. It's one man versus nature, nature versus man. Only one can survive. I never felt so alone.
Sheldon?
Yeah, Cam.
Yeah, you're not alone. You're here at MEC.
Oh. All right then.
Coming up, we'll return to our conversation with author Andy Crouch with some surprising thoughts on the untapped power that resides in each of us. Context is on the road this week at Redeemer University College in Hamilton, Ontario. There we caught up with Andy Crouch, author of a compelling new book, Playing God, Redeeming the Gift of Power. After asking Andy about the use and abuse of power in the home and the workplace, we discussed power in the modern metropolis. You quote World Vision's director in India saying that wherever there are poor people, someone is playing God in their lives. Can you give me an example of that?
So slavery is the clearest example of playing God. Slavery is about it's a very specific set of conditions: forced to work, not properly paid, and not free to leave. And at least between 20 and 30 million people are living in that. What happens in slavery is one person, or sometimes a group of people, plays God in the life of another group of people. That is, they don't play the true God, by the way. They play a kind of false image that takes total control of another person's life. See, in a proper employment relationship, there's a freedom of the employee to leave. That's part of the dignity of a human being, that they can decide not to do something. There's a just wage paid. Slavery breaks down all of this, and now a person made in the image of God is now belongs to another person. And that's the most kind of dramatic form of God playing in our world.
Tell me about taking the concept that there's something going on in my city that I can actually influence with power.
There's actually, this is happening all over North America, a kind of increasing willingness of people of faith and communities of faith to actually participate in what you might call the civic life of the city. Not necessarily the politics, though sometimes that can be part of it, but more all the things that knit us together with our neighbors. And when you think of power as image bearing, and you realize when I'm in a city, I'm surrounded by lots and lots of image bearers, as well as lots and lots of power, then I think it becomes very important for Christians not to just let that system do whatever it does on its own and stay in our own kind of enclaves, but actually join our neighbors, who after all are also image bearers, in trying to do what image bearers are supposed to do, which is use their power to create flourishing. And it's especially important and significant and exciting when Christians can be part of creating flourishing for the most vulnerable. And cities concentrate image bearing, but they also concentrate vulnerability.
While I was discussing power with Andy Crouch, Sheldon Neal was in the field, putting some of Andy's ideas to the test. Sheldon hit the streets and discovered a pretty unique bike shop.
Thank you, Lorna. And I'm actually here at Switchback Cyclery, a great shop here in the neighborhood here. But I gotta let you know, actions speak a little bit louder than words. I'm actually on a bike right now, and you're gonna know a little bit more about that. But I'm also not alone. I'm here with my friend Steve Hunter. How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Sheldon.
This location, you guys opened its last summer, is that right?
That's correct, yes. We just opened in June last year.
Just June last year. However, the heart behind this business stretches far before that. Tell us a little about Switchback Cyclery and its goals.
Well, Switchback Cycling was born out of years and years of working with a marginalized community at Sanctuary. And for years now, maybe, I guess probably it goes back about 10 years, maybe 12 years, when before my time here, they opened a wood shop where the marginalized could experience a meaningful work.
For those who do not know, what is Sanctuary? That's your local church, you're saying?
Sanctuary is a community of people that meet together and do worship on Sunday, but it's much, much more than that. Sanctuary has an old building up at Charles and Yonge Street. They've been doing drop-in meals for years. They have nurses up there. We have a whole group of people that do outreach. We have one member of our staff team that manages the kitchen, but all the folks that actually prepare the meal are actually part of our community, which is radically different from most agencies.
So what makes Switchback Cyclery different than other neighborhood bike shops?
Well, there's several things. The first is that we are a social purpose enterprise. So our bottom line, and any businessman's going to tell you, the bottom line is the bottom line, financial. We have a double bottom line. So as much as we need to be financially responsible, what we're really interested in just as much, and really in my heart more, is the social equity that we're building in people's lives. So often what will happen is when people come in the door here, they stop and they look around the shop here and they say, wow, this is a really nice shop. This is really kind of relaxed and laid back. There's something different here. What is this? And if you take a look around, you'll see that we have, in the middle of our retail space, we have these benches where our bike techs actually work. There are several reasons for that, but first and foremost in my heart is that equity is what this is all about. We have a back room back there that'd be perfect for shoving all the bike techs back in there and hiding the people. But I want our folks that are coming from a background of abuse and marginalization and across a whole wide gamut of experiences to feel as equitable as anybody else in the place.
So how does being at Switchback, and I spoke with Steve earlier and he mentioned how being a part of this is all about family really. So how has that changed your life?
When I'm at home or if I look back at my previous employment, there was always a part of me that was in survival because I felt I had to fight to survive. And this is very much part of my personality, but it was in an extreme point. And being here, I've had moments, not all the time because I'm still in that pattern of survival. I had moments where I felt completely safe.
The only way you can be empowered is by somebody who's actually giving you power, is offering you something. And that's what many of our folks have never had. They've never had an offering of actual empowerment.
For those who are watching, they're saying, you know what, they may be able to work here, but they want to continue to help the worker switch back. How do they do that?
Well, the best way to help here, there are no volunteer positions here, and the reason there are no volunteer positions is because any position that's available here we want to give to the right person. But beyond that, we are a retail bike shop. You can come here for your service. Our service is what we're all about. We have 3 benches now. We're going to have 4. And these bike techs are being trained, and we oversee them, and they're doing great work. So maintenance, service, any bike, we don't care what it is. We go from the cheapest right all the way to the top.
Thank you so much, Steve Hunter, Switchback
Thank
Cycling.
you,
Lorna, back to you.
Well, is it possible that the exercise of true power requires real vulnerability? That's another question I explored with Andy Crouch, author of Playing God, Redeeming the Gift of Power. Andy, we've seen great examples of how people are trying to take what God has designed for power to make the world better at work. I'm puzzled that it's so hard to hear God's gift for the world in the din of all the voices and the messages. This is good news, the gospel. How can it be heard better in the din of our lives?
I think this has actually always been true, that it's been hard to hear. In our own time, consumer culture, with all of its ways of convincing us that there's some amazing life out there if we can just afford it, it's always been hard to hear it. So the disciplines that have always been needed to be saints, you might say, to be people who actually are tuned in to the reality, apply to us too. We need to withdraw from time to time to a kind of quiet, literally often a quiet, lonely place. Jesus had to do this.
So if Jesus needed to recalibrate to reflect God in the world, how often do we do it? Is it daily?
Ideally, it's more than daily. Ideally, it's a kind of a heartbeat or a breathing. I mean, I have to breathe every few moments to stay alive, right? So in some sense, the goal of kind of becoming a full image bearer is that I'm practicing the fact that God is present, that God is delivering this good news to me every moment. How do I do that? Well, I literally practice it. So on any given day, I need to find some time during the day where I don't have a lot of distractions, and I can just practice the presence of God with me and in me in prayer. There are 3 things I pray my way through many times during the day. 3 just simple sentences. There is another who lives in me. There is another who completes me. There is another whose righteousness is mine. And so many times during the day, I can be sitting having some coffee. I can be sitting waiting for you to ask the next question. And as I breathe in and out, I'll be thinking, there is another who lives in me. So I don't have to live it. I don't have to do it all myself. There is another who completes me. So I don't have to be perfect and whole here. I can just be the incomplete person I am. There's another whose righteousness is mine. I don't have to prove myself to anybody. God has taken care of that. And that literally, ultimately, we have to practice that so much that it's just the heartbeat or the breath of our lives.
It's difficult to communicate and to understand the work of Jesus on the cross. How would you describe it? What the Christian cross, what the role of Jesus' death is for our lives?
What happened at the cross, I think, is that the one who truly bore the image of God came into direct contact and conflict with all the forms of false images in the world. The Roman Empire, the most powerful sort of engine of both idolatry and injustice in the ancient world. But also, unfortunately, the religious leadership who had their own kind of false god. They conspire together, and all the forces of idolatry and injustice get concentrated on the one who truly bears the image. And Jesus bears the full weight of all the damage, all the corruption that corrupted power can deal out. But it turns out that on the other side of that profound vulnerability is a deeper power that is able to rescue us from the worst that idols can do. So the cross, you could think of it as a kind of a rescue mission in which we are First, we see unmasked what the idols really are up to. They are so destructive. They're so against real flourishing that they will snuff out the life of the very one who made the world. And they are not ultimately powerful enough to keep him from life. And so the cross both unmasks the truth about the world and offers a way past the destruction of idolatry and injustice, and says there's a deeper power at work that's going to bring life even out of the most vulnerable, painful situations in our lives.
When we return, some parting thoughts on discovering power in unexpected places. After talking with Andy Crouch, I look at both power and God a little differently now. Power is God's gift to help us repair the world, and we all have more power than we think. To use our power more wisely and creatively, it helps to know something of the good God who shares his power with us. It is as G.K. Chesterton once said, "Let your religion be less of a theory and more of a love affair." If you are curious about that, connect with us here at Context. Go to our website, call our viewer feedback line, or send an email with the subject, "Tell me more." One of the first followers of Jesus, known as Paul, had this to say when he discovered the power and love of God in his life. God's power at work in us can do infinitely more than we could ever ask or imagine. Now that's good news. For all of us, I'm Lorna Dueck. Thanks for watching, and join us next week as we explore life beyond the headlines.